So when it all went down, it was a very personal experience for everybody, not just the immediacy of the whole thing. And I think my first response was, what can I do? And Josh, when I was talking with him, said that's kind of was his first response.
And right away, in a very brief conversation, we said a couple different things like what we could do, and we were immediately looking at it from a builder's point of view. Already looking at rebuilding, because it looked like Armageddon, and we realized it was going to be a big problem. Phil came to that first meeting. I think there were about 15 of us here in this very shop. And Larry and I talked a little bit, and then Phil got up and talked. And it was right away very apparent to Larry and I that Phil was super organized.
And we came up with the idea that people don't have to just be safe and sanitary in the aftermath of a disaster. I mean, that's good. No one's arguing about safe and sanitary. But, you know, the idea is no disaster should be wasted. And that through the power of local community, through the power of all the combined talent in Larimer County, whether they were in the fire or not in the fire or in surrounding communities, this combined talent could help people recover safer, stronger, and smarter.
It was pretty obvious that people had very specific questions.
And we came up with this idea that the professionals would help educate homeowners in addition to helping them rebuild.
And Greg Fisher, the architect that we mentioned earlier, was instrumental in organizing that.
And so that he would come up with the topics, and then usually one of the members of our group, or sometimes people from completely outside our group, if we didn't have expertise in their area, we would bring people in. And we also brought like the Larimer County Building Department to give a talk, and we sourced as much information as we could.
We wrapped them all up in dirt to drapes, which basically takes the homeowner at the beginning of they're left in a brown field, not a green field, right? They're just hunks of metal and ash and disaster all around them. We take them from that point and we talk about foundations, we talk about planning, and we talk about design and budget, and we talk about foundations and roofs and walls and fitting in with your space and manifesting your vision, going where your vision guides you. We take them all the way to hanging drapes. And this was incredibly powerful.
We talked about it later, how we could help other communities. I think we all were pretty proud of what we had achieved. And we really feel like a lot of people could learn a lot from what we achieved. All of the whole group, the whole community.
I think one of the things that happened really early that kind of made it work and really surprised us is that when we all of a sudden realized that we just had to trust the group. And the group, you know, it's very difficult sometimes you'd hear a lot about groupthink and group action these days and trusting the group and stuff. And I was very skeptical of that. But once we started doing it and realized that that's the way to go, I think that's when everything started to mesh. Mm-hmm. And you could get out a common trusted message.
Think about this from a homeowner's perspective. You just lost your home. You just found out you were 30% underinsured, minimum. The average was 50% underinsured. So now you don't have enough money to rebuild, and here's this little group that comes along and says, build safer and stronger and smarter. Well, you don't have enough money to build safe and sanitary. But we're going to help you, we say. And then you get some plans, and you come to this meeting, and you've got 50 professionals that are taking apart your building plans, and they're writing notes on it and suggestions so you can build better.
There were a couple different types of volunteer efforts. Some were more general, that the word would go out that, okay, somebody needed help doing something and needed a lot of manpower. And then those would happen just kind of organically. And then there were some other instances where individuals really needed help from beginning to end.
people would come and say, and they'd be in tears, and they'd say, I got caught in an unusual moment. I lost, my insurance company denied me, and I wasn't fast enough, and the fire hit, and I had no insurance. Or I have so little insurance, I'm so embarrassed, I didn't know that I'm supposed to check every couple years, and it's been 40 years since I looked at my insurance, and I have 10% of what I need. And a lot of the pros just fell in love with these people.
And kind of became pet projects of the group, and were ongoing efforts. And those were usually headed up by some key people who just took a big interest in it and really kept asking for help and kept pushing things forward. It's still happening, actually. I mean,
and the hours that these people put into helping and rebuilding, it's staggering. You know, and there are other groups. They weren't the only ones doing volunteer work in the fire. You know, the Baptists, the Mennonites. They came from Oklahoma. The Baptists came from Oklahoma. They're doing it. Their part was ash out. They're digging the ash. They're helping people dig ashes and sort their valuables and sort their metal. And while they're here, a tornado strikes their hometown, and they stood here when they knew that their neighbor's home was destroyed because they had a job to finish. And they did it with tears, but they also fell in love with our community and wanted to finish their job, and then took off to go dig out from their disaster.
A lot of the things that are most important are not tangible values. It's not necessarily your house right at this moment. It's a message that's really hard to give to people at the beginning, but I think that it's an intangible thing called hope and possibility. And once we establish that, and we didn't talk about that so much in the beginning, but once we established that kind of a safe, hopeful place, all of the things that Phil was talking about in terms of actually putting it on the ground flowed from that.
And it starts, as Larry said, with hope, and then the very next step in the staircase is vision. And once the community establishes their own local vision that addresses their needs and their wants and their recovery, then the rest of the stairs fall into place. And that's not huge science. What is huge science is just getting people to know that they're the masters and the captains of their ship. And that was our really big discovery. I mean, it sounds kind of weird telling you it was our big discovery, but there isn't going to be things that come out of the sky the government is too big. It's not a knock on the government, it's just they can only do what they can do. And while they inspire, they try to talk about resiliency in the pre-disaster planning stage. Once a disaster struck, the services are really set up for disaster, immediate needs, Red Cross, and a lot of yada, yada, yada. And are you able to sleep? Do you have a place to go, et cetera, et cetera. And after that first 2 weeks, the first 3 weeks, whenever, those kind of services start to pack up, that's when the community needs to form and use every network. That's why we like to say, NoCo for Northern Colorado, NoCo Rebuilding Network. We're really nothing except a network of already existing for-profit and non-profit governmental entities that have all come together for the single purpose of hope, love, trust, vision, and getting people back in their homes, in the community that they want to be in a safer, smarter, stronger way.